Welcome to the British Academy and to the conference Contemporary Challenges in Transitional Vietnam, Insights from Vietnamese or Vietnam Studies in the United Kingdom. First of all, thank you for all coming. I know a lot of you have had 5:30 a.m. starts from various parts of the country. And also just to say thanks for so many of you coming. It's actually quite remarkable just how many people I've had to say we just don't have capacity to come to the conference. So that really does say something about Vietnam studies in the UK at the moment. And apologies for perhaps being so squashed on the table. You'll definitely get to know each other. So I'm just going to spend 10 minutes just outlining a bit about the day. First, more the kind of intellectual reasons behind the day. The second part will be handing over to Matthew Tai, who is going to tell us a bit more about Vietnam studies in the UK. And finally, just a bit about the logistics of the day. For example, you've probably noticed that there's a video camera here, so I'll just explain a bit about that. So, in terms of what the conference or the workshop today is about, this obviously brings together the themes of transition, so change at different scales, with challenges that still remain. Vietnam is often heralded as a kind of darling of the international aid world, one of the few development success stories that is often drawn upon. Now, today we're going to look at a number of different challenges that still remain. This is bringing together scholars from across disciplinary divides, which I think is fantastic, and also from institutions across the UK, but also bringing together scholars who are in the UK from Vietnam at the moment, so particular welcome to them. So these are demographic challenges or transitions, social, economic, political. They have been presented in quite a discrete way in the conference outline, but these are obviously interlinked, and this is something that we will certainly have an opportunity to think about. The second thing to say really is that clearly there are many themes that we are not covering today. It's only one day, and but I think the themes that we are discussing does demonstrate a certain richness to the work that's going on in the UK at the moment. So just to take you through, give you a flavour of the panels today. The first panel is on themes about migration, and predominantly around rural to urban migration and the significance of internal migration. Migration really has been integral to the overall economic development of Vietnam, and there has been steady increases in rural to urban migration. Many authors argue that this process of migration actually reflects important socio-economic disparities, particularly between cities and countryside, and the growing labour market in large cities and expanding industrial zones. The second panel is looking more broadly at social development trends in Vietnam, and we have 3 papers in this panel looking at gendered vulnerabilities more broadly, health sector reform, and the pressure of ageing. So many of these papers will reflect on a situation in which, whilst Vietnam has become one of the world's most rapidly reforming economies, there are actually still serious concerns about growing social inequalities, which are expressed through many of the themes in this panel. So I'm not actually presenting today, partly due to the administrative burden or joy of organising the conference. But I just wanted to give you a flavour of why I felt it was important to organise this day. I've actually only been working in Vietnam for 3 years. My PhD was on gender issues in Cambodia, and I'm continuing to still work in Cambodia. I have a new 3-year grant funded by ESRC DFID, Poverty Alleviation Scheme on domestic violence law in Cambodia. But the last 3 years, post-PhD, I've been working in Hue in central Vietnam. And this really was in looking at gender change in the context of households in the wider kind of macro landscape of transition. So this was a 3-year British Academy postdoctoral fellowship between 2009 and 2011, which was entitled Geographies of Transition in the Mekong Region, Gender, Labour and Domestic Life in Cambodia and Vietnam. And I was looking at the implications of the feminization of labour within Vietnam for 2 main kind of trajectories. First was the idea about this having impacts on men's lives and identities. So I've been doing a lot of work on masculinity in Vietnam. And the second is about the impact of the feminization of labour on gender injustices within the home. And this really fits into a concern that's been more recently expressed in the Vietnam Country Gender Assessment 2011 of the World Bank, in which they see the importance of prioritising better infrastructure and policy support in terms of the double burden that many Vietnamese women face. I've also been extremely lucky in the last 2 years to have a British Academy small grant in which I've been looking more closely at happy family competitions, so and basically, Jardin Han Phuc. And these are competitions which are organised in the majority of communes in Vietnam. I've been working with the Women's Union for my postdoctoral work, and they had only really once tried to encourage men to become part of these competitions. So collaboratively, we organised one of their first competitions in which men competed with women to be the happiest family. So here you have a picture looking down on the event. So this was the idea about men not just being judges and audience members as they orthodoxly are, but also being participants with women. In terms of methods, my work uses a lot of visual methods, and we used participatory video. So community members were trained in how to make films about issues they deemed important to them. This included kind of training exercises and workshops using participatory drama, and as you can see here, body mapping. The idea was that a video was then made, a documentary about the competition day. And unfortunately, I don't have time to show you today, but I can give you the login details to watch this video. So here you have one shot from the competition day. So my research, while I don't have the opportunity to speak about it at length today, is thinking about debates in Vietnam about how to encourage or promote male participation in family activities through initiatives that go beyond merely the monetary to include men's engagement in domestic labour more broadly. So this is a picture of some of the filming happening during the day, and I'll email the login details. The final picture from my work is from last summer. This is a picture of the final screening of the video. The video was co-edited with the union, with the Women's Union and participants, and it's actually being piloted as a gender training tool at the moment. So the participatory videos that were made about domestic life are being used to facilitate discussion in some of the gender training workshops that the commune uses. So this is where I am at in terms of my work on Vietnam. So this really would fit into the social development challenges. The third panel will take a more explicit look at transition in terms of Vietnamese politics, nation building, and Vietnam's wider membership of international bodies such as WTO. And this obviously will fit within a kind of a growing background of, some might say, discontent and protest within Vietnamese society. So we will be looking at in a bit more depth. And then lastly, but not least, are other themes that are really salient to Vietnam's development and the challenges it faces. So we'll be thinking about the role of the media, journalism, and also about tourism development. So all in all, you can see that there's a huge range of intersecting challenges that today's workshop will look at. And I hope it will really showcase what the wealth of research that UK scholars are currently engaged in Vietnam. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Matthew.
So good morning, and I'd like to extend my very warm greetings to you, and thank you for coming today. Just to give you a bit of background about the Vietnam Academic Network UK, which was established in 2009, 3 years ago. I coordinate that, and that was established in recognition of the growing importance of strengthening the relations that we have between our two countries, and particularly in the academic sphere. Our patrons are Mark Kent, the former British ambassador who's now gone to Thailand, and former Ambassador Jun, who remains actively involved in promoting links between Vietnam and the UK. Over the last few years, we've held a series of workshops and conferences and seminars, and the next upcoming one will be in Cambridge in this coming winter, and I'll be happy to send round details about that. The other thing that we do is try to showcase the work that you do as UK scholars on Vietnam, and on our webpage we have a members directory which collects everyone's information and shows what research topics that we are working on. So if you're not currently on that, please do email me, and we'll be happy to put your biography and research interests up on there. Just like to say a few words about UK studies, Vietnam studies in the UK. I think that 5 years ago we would have had very great difficulty in getting even 30 people around this table. So it's a real reflection of how things have moved so quickly in the last few years. The investment and business in Vietnam is mirrored by the growing numbers of academics experiencing Vietnam as a research site today. The discourse that is given out in the UK through our research is somewhat different from that's happening in the United States, where the Vietnam Scholars Association is heavily influenced by the Viet Kieu. Over the last year, the UK and Vietnamese higher education sector have been working together, and particularly facilitated through the British Council, and there's a lot of capacity building been going on. If we look at higher education institutions in Vietnam today, there's not one that ranks in the major lists of world universities. So there's a lot of work to do, and I think that part of that work is us giving our input. And finally, just to mention that Southeast, and South Asia region is of particular research growing in its importance, and that's reflected again in the number of UK universities beginning to establish long-term schools and institutes. Oxford, for one, is establishing one and trying to make a big project out of that. I just have one question. Where will we be in a few years' time? Is there enough enthusiasm and enough drive to have a Vietnam Studies Centre in the UK? And I'll leave that thought with you. This year is a leap year. And rather than us today, as we network and we get each other's contacts, I want us all to take a big leap. I want us to go one step further, 2 steps further. We have so much potential in the room today. Rather than just collecting email addresses and hearing about what people are working on, how can we go that one step further? How can we use each other's expertise? How can we expand potential collaborations? So please do give that some consideration today. Thank you.